There are various ways to make a radio campaign work, but what I like about this is you don't have the background in it, but you listen to it, and you've listened to it all your life. What do you like about radio versus what do you dislike about radio?
Well, I mean, I like radio because it's something to pass your time as you're driving. But I mean, I'm in marketing now, so I listen to it differently than maybe what I did when I wasn't in marketing.
Welcome to Agency Unplugged. I'm Michael Morris with my friend who wants to introduce himself, so I'm going to introduce him again, Sean Brown. Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Sean Brown.
I'm super happy you're here again. And we're going to talk about...
Again, it's part of my show.
I know, but to the audience, they'll think that it's my show and that, unfortunately,
that's
you
the
have
problem.
To
if you want people to watch this, it can't be your show.
Why would they watch you? So they can see an egg that talks? I think that was insulting, and I want to take that back. I want to take it back.
I'm offended.
I wanted to make
by the guy with poop on his lip.
First of all, let me just say this: you already messed up the algorithm.
You can get that white colored. You know
that. First of all, I don't see color, racist. But what I want to say is this: can we stay on topic this time? That's going to be a no.
Yep.
Nate is on the wheels of steel back here on his phone making logos. Nate, how are you?
Good.
So if this goes off the rails like the last time, I'll just talk to you and just turn my back on him.
All right, that works.
Okay. Let's identify the topic so we can stay on it.
So here's the topic, and you'll hear it because Nate's going to play the little song there, that radio is dead and how it can be alive again. Sean, you're an avid radio listener because you call me at least once a week. Hey, I heard this commercial, and it's really good. Who's it by? Or who did it? I don't know. How many times have we had that conversation?
We have it every day, but that's not the way it goes. Again, back to our old episode, you talked about me being a positive guy. I'm not the positive. I always call you, and what do I say? I heard a radio ad, and they went through the whole radio ad, and at the end of it, I have no freaking clue who the business is.
Right.
Or they left a phone number that nobody remembers anymore.
So that's
what I call you about.
So let's discuss this part, because a lot of what we've done in the last 5 or 6 years is talk to people who have done radio before and it didn't work. And that is the number one thing that, and again, in almost 30 years of doing this, I tried radio and it doesn't work. That's actually in textbooks where they were trying to teach you how to sell to somebody. There are various ways to make a radio campaign work, but what I like about this is you don't have the background in it, but you listen to it, and you've listened to it all your life. What do you like about radio versus what do you dislike about radio?
Well, I mean, I like radio because it's something to pass your time as you're driving, but I mean, I'm in marketing now, so I listen to it differently than maybe what I did when I wasn't in marketing.
Do you not like that, by the way? When you hear it a different, when you know what's behind the curtain, does it make you dislike it, or does it make you feel like you don't care?
It makes me critical, which I'm already analytical and critical. So when I listen to it and I hear, I won't even say that one because it's actually a live.
You can say that, but you can say the roofing.
People say, go to ABC, whatever.com and call 465-634-55. And you're like, I've never seen somebody whip off the highway and get a piece of pen and paper out there, write down a phone number. And we don't remember phone numbers anymore. Right. I mean, nobody I don't know my kids. I know my wife's, but I don't know my kid's phone number. I don't know your phone number. So we're not conditioned to memorize it. So to just put a phone number on a radio ad is completely worthless. And I hear it all the time. But then they put their website on there and you go to it and it goes to a not secure site and doesn't let there's just so many errors when people do stuff and they're paying a lot of money for it and they wonder why it don't work.
So I'm going to tell you what I hate about what's happened to this business, because as a kid, the whole reason I wanted to work on radio my whole life, because my dad would have the radio on in the back and he'd have 700 WLW on for the Reds games and the Reds. I mean, every day they were talking about the Reds. So growing up, it was like, this is awesome. But I was also, as a kid, learning about Cincinnati politics, and I'd be like, I don't think that Dusty Rhodes, not the wrestler, I don't think he should be county commissioner. And you're talking to a bunch of other first graders, and it's like, why does nobody care about this like I do? But the thing I love about radio is that it is something that you bring into your home or into your behavior, right? Whether like normally you're driving and calling me while I'm driving because you heard an ad, but we're looking at it more in the marketing context. What radio did was it ate itself. And when I got into radio in 1998, it was the dawn of like, it was still like a big thing. Like people, they would look at radio the same they looked at TV. And they were on equal footing. And what happened is as time went on and Bill Clinton signed the Telecommunications Act in 1996, which made it that multiple radio stations and TV stations could be held by the same person. So there's only 6 media companies in the world. They own pieces. It's the same thing as like Pepsi. When you go, I'm not going to drink Pepsi because Kendall Jenner is a whore. It doesn't matter because they own Mountain Dew, they own KFC, they own all this other stuff. The conglomeration of these things made it that it was a widget. So radio spots are just widgets. So they added more commercials. Same thing they did in TV, as that will make more money. And what they did was they drove listeners off because there's too many commercials. And one copies another. But the other part is, as radio kept going on, they didn't bring younger people in as listeners and as salespeople. How many salespeople have you met in media that are under the age of 47?
Not too many. None.
They don't exist. When I was a rookie at 22 years old in 1998, I was one of like maybe 10. And then those people kind of got to grow with those companies. So you went from literally they gave you a phone book and you would just call or you just walk into places. And that's how you built your career. Now they can't find people to take those jobs. There's a station in town that typically does about $10 to $12 million a year that has 3 salespeople. All of those people are 58 or older. So what happens when they retire? What happens when they just get sick of coming there? If it's not that radio's dying, it is the way that they've treated this as though they're running out of gas and they're not worried about getting younger people. And so younger people went to Rogan or podcasts like this or Spotify. People still love radio. It's that radio pushed people to alternatives with fewer commercials. And that's probably affecting your how many hours do you think you listen to radio a week?
A week, maybe 7 hours on my drive to take my kid to school and back.
Right. But I bet it's not even that high.
Probably not.
You know what I mean? So let's say it's 4 hours. I haven't listened to the radio, and I'm a person that loves radio. I haven't listened to the radio in 12 years. Because the spots are bad. Now they're written by ChatGPT. But normally they're written by guys like us. There's no training. You just write what you write. There's no sales assistant writing it. Or the production director does it.
That's a big disclaimer we should have said.
What?
That you don't know what you're doing and you're having people write.
Oh, I think
ads.
that people know by the way that I'm dressed and the way I look and the fact that you made fun of my mustache that I don't know what I'm doing. I just happen to have been around longer.
Please send all your money to Michael to do your radio ads.
Yeah. Let me write your scripts, and it just has to be about one topic. But I think that you see that same thing in radio that is, it's a product that killed itself, but could have a massive rebirth because Sirius radio, nobody cares about it. It just happens to be free in your car. And then as soon as you have to pay, you say, no, I'll cancel. And they'll say, we'll give you another 6 months for free. You know what I mean? Everything exists just to run commercials. And that's what's killed it off. But somebody that would be like, do your kids listen to radio at all?
No, they listen to Spotify and all that. I mean, the only time, actually, I mean, even when you ask about radio, the one thing it does do is it brings you back to your childhood when you listen to radio and the songs and the times and the eras. But usually we're not accessing that through traditional radio. It's going to Spotify to pull up the 80s list or something like that.
But that's where when I say a rebirth of it, with more advertisers going to the Spotifys and streaming TV and all that, they're leaving fertile ground. The way you have to use radio is different, though. You have to, we don't run any campaigns that are less than 1,000 commercials a month. And people say, oh my God, that's so expensive. It's not. If you do it 30s, 15s, and 5s. If you do it that way, your frequency, you're running 24 to 48 times a day. That's how you win, right? And again, it goes to what we said on a previous episode. If I know that a water heater going in there is $1,000, you give me $4,000 and I sell you 5 water heaters. Did you make money? Yes. The thing is, if you let that combine itself over 12 months, and I said the wrong word, not combine.
If I know what you're saying, I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
The frequency aspect of it.
Right. The point
Compounding
is to run more than your competitors. You don't have to spend more money to do that, but that's not how they sell it. So yeah,
and you don't even have to be a real good company.
No,
you can be a fake company and do it.
So that was my next thing. Sean, explain Roof Columbus, the finest roofing company that never had a tool.
Roof Columbus, with the dog barking, roof, which was me on the radio. My stardom point.
I think that you doing the dog barking was the greatest thing you ever did.
I didn't do it though. It was the guy at the station that recommended it. Remember? We all tried.
Yeah.
And he liked my bark the best. But everybody says radio doesn't work, or it works until they make a lot of money and then they don't want to pay for it anymore. So then they stop and then their business goes down and then they want to start again and it's too late. They've lost the momentum. But to prove it, you know, Michael and I like to just prove data points and make sure things work.
Because I get irritable and you know, we should
get irritable. And so we literally created a fake roofing company called Roof Columbus.
It was a real company.
Still is real. It's out there digitally. But we created this Roof Columbus idea.
You're getting into you got to tell the story of why. Because a roofing company canceled on me and I got pissed. And I went to have lunch. When I get mad, there's one of 2 people and they're going to have to listen to me rant about how much I want to burn the houses down of these people because they're getting results and they quit. And I can't hear very well. So we went to a crowded restaurant that has games on and all that stuff. And I'm not even listening to Sean. Fair to say, I'm not listening to you at all.
I don't know if
you're talking to me and trying to make me feel better. And every word out of my mouth sounds like Andrew Dice Clay. And I am just livid. And you say the following phrase, we should start a roofing company. And I spin towards you and I go, oh, should we start a roofing company? And you go, I can't remember what you said. And you said, or a duct cleaning company. And I thought you said duck like the bird. And I said, oh, duck. Like what, who's buying ducks? And you go, roof. And I go, Jesus Christ, that's brilliant. And so we we come up with logos of what it looks like. It was all branding because we were going to use radio to promote it. So take it from there.
And that's all we did. We did I set up a free website, and I'm not a website builder from a creativity standpoint, but just threw a Roof Columbus up. We decided we're going to run radio, and after
radio exclusive
radio,
else.
just to prove that it can do something. And after 30 days, we had 586 visitors to our website off of the radio ads that were going, and people were hearing roof. I mean, I'm at a concert at the old Crew practice facility, and we're in the Schmitz sausage line, and I hear it come over the radio and blast in front of everybody. And my wife, she's standing there, we're getting ready to pay for our sausages, and she goes, that roof, that dog barking, that's my husband. And I'm like, yeah, this is our whole gimmick. But throughout the process, I mean, we're getting phone calls and passing the roofing leads off to people.
And we got an offer to buy the company.
Yeah. I literally get a phone call and the guy wants to buy our franchise. He thought we were a franchise because he heard us on the radio and it sounded so professional. And I said, buddy, we've not even installed a roof. Like this is a marketing gimmick just to prove that something works. And so that's our roof story. I mean, it's still out there if you want to Google it, but
and you should actually, because again, we did 100% radio and just had a site built and made a logo. The point was to show other people that it worked. And it brought us 3 roofing clients that we did their marketing for, who literally the conversation was, I want to do what Roof is doing. whoever they are, because we can't find them. We don't know who they are. And we would say, well, that's us. We could do that with any situation in any market. All you're looking to do is, what's the name? Is it memorable? Does the site look good? Is it easy to convert people to stay on the pages longer and look at your content? And then will you respond in time? And I think the biggest problem people have is, if you had 100 leads, so we have this situation going on with a couple of people, they have 100 leads that they're sitting on. They're not doing anything. They're not calling. They're not emailing, any of that. And they're hot leads. So I can only sit there and say, you should call them or you should email them. It's not on me to do anything else. We got them for you. Even if your closing ratio is hot trash and you close 10 of those leads, you're making money. The other stuff's going to come from your radio or your TV, whatever. But everybody starts with radio because that's the easiest barrier to entry. The production is free. Scripting is free. All of that. You just have to buy right and you have to run more than your competition. And again, it doesn't take more money to do that. But when we did the roof thing, you didn't have experience in it. What did you think when you would hear it all day? Because you're involved in it, but you're also like, because when I never heard it unless I was in a station and they would have the station on.
Well, I heard it all the time. My kids would hear it. Dad, there's your thing.
Yeah.
Dad, there's your thing.
It was just funny to me because I didn't hear it, but when I would walk in to do production or have a meeting and I would hear it on the air, I would kind of cringe like, oh my God, like that's our thing. Like, is this legit? Should we be doing that? And the director of sales at the building I was at, once he found out it was ours, he said, man, that's genius. Like, I don't know why I didn't do that. You know what I mean? But again, radio can work. People aren't using it correctly. And stations are programming it wrong because they think running more spots makes them more money. If you actually look, there's a thing called less is more, and that took place around 2007, 2008. And you'll see this in the store where they'll say it's a smaller box, but there's more packed in it. Horse shit. Less of less is still less. So their thought was the whole business from the 40s and 50s on was you either ran a 60-second spot or 10 seconds. And I always tell people the love connection, or was it love connection or dating game? Love connection.
You're bringing up stuff that people are not going to have a clue what it is.
Yeah, but
You've
they
mentioned
can Google
phone books, Andrew Dice Clay, and now the dating game. Like,
should we book Andrew Dice Clay? Are you saying that no one's going to get the reference or no one cares about him?
you usually talk way above my head, and I get what those are, but if somebody's under 50, they're probably not going to know what a phone book is.
Edit a phone book on this table with Andrew Dice Clay in between us. So what I'm saying is, this. Where was I going with this? What was I saying?
Exactly.
Dumbass. I was going somewhere with this. Point being is, radio by selling more. So in 2007, my boss of all bosses walks over to me and hands me 13 pieces of paper and says, I need you to go to an agency that used to be a big agency here in town. We're going to pitch this tomorrow morning because we're starting this on Friday. And it's called Less is More. Some accountant in San Antonio, you can figure out who I'm talking about, what radio group, said if you run shorter length spots, instead of 60s, you run 30s and 15s, you can make more money because if you sell the 30 for 65% of the 60, sell two 30s, we made 30% more money. Fantastic. So as we drive, the two heads of state are up front and I'm Miss Daisy in the back, another old reference. As we pull in, I said, have you guys looked at this yet? And my favorite phrase is if someone doesn't know shit about shit and they say, I gave it a 30,000 foot view, that means they don't know what the hell's going on. So this is what's said. I gave it a 30,000 foot view. I said, do you realize that we will lose 40% of our revenue right now? Why would we do that? Because nobody in the history of radio has run a 30-second spot. And they just got quiet. I said, well, fuck it. We're here. We're going to do this presentation. We do the presentation to like 11 people. And they're not nice people. Presentation's over. And the lady who ran the agency, we were good friends. And she said, Michael, fantastic. Great job. Looks at the boss of all bosses and said, Tom, fuck you, Tom. Tom, what does this mean to us? And he said, well, you'll be able to buy these stations cheaper and more efficiently and all that. And she said, no, we're not, because we have to redo all of the production that we've done. So every 60-second spot we can't use anymore. So now we have to go to the clients and bill them to do 30s.
More cost.
They're 10s. Well, you can't run the 10. I got to bill them to do the 15 again. I have to go back through every spot we've ever done, what we call an evergreen, where you can just run it over and over and over again. So what ended up happening is they're still stuck at the same revenue for the last 14 years. It's never gone up. It's only gone down because you train people to buy something at a deal. And because no one had a 30, we were selling spots at $300. We started to sell them at $65 because we couldn't run the 60. So you know what they're paying now? $100. You lost yourself $200 per spot and did that over and over and over again across the country. That's what killed that business. And that's why people didn't want to get in that business, because they also cut commissions at the same time. So when I'm selling something at 4% and it's $10,000 and after taxes, plus I got to do the copy. I got to put the order in. I got to make sure that you're going to commit to the next month. And then after taxes, I'm going to make $280 for what? That's the problem. And that's why no one cares. And it goes back to what you said on the previous show. If they're just there to sell a unit, I don't have time to care about you and your success, because I got to move on and make my budget and I got to get paid.
If you think about it, you said something in there that triggered a thought. You said your boss came to you and asked you to do something.
Yes.
I'll never forget when I went to go work in marketing for the first time at my software company, that I found out that they also owned a big yellow book full of phone numbers.
Did it have pages?
It had pages in it too.
So it had yellow
and they were pages. And I'm looking at it going, wait a minute, I'm a software sales guy. Like, what the heck is this stuff? They're like, oh, well, we happen to own this other part of our business too. And you have to go out and renew these people's ads.
Yeah.
And you know me.
Your first was a what? And then why?
Yes. Well, the first, I just told this story the other day to somebody. My very first week, we went to a town with a Z called Zanesville, put us up in a hotel for a week to go out and renew all these people's ads. I had no clue what I was doing. My boss at the time said, I'm going to ride with you. It's your first week. So we go out and make cold call sales, and we walk into this business, and he's so freaking nervous. He hadn't sold in I don't know how long. And he's stumbling all over himself. So I just start talking to the people. And at the end of the meeting, they looked at me and said, so are you his boss? I'm like, no, actually, he's my boss. And they're looking at him like, this guy was so nervous, he couldn't say anything. So starting in here, they give me this book, book of business, and they tell me go out. I literally go to a children's dentistry office in Worthington. And it's an older dentist, a younger daughter who's also a dentist that's working there. And I walk in, they're like, oh, you're from so-and-so. Like, sit down. Where do I sign to renew my ads? And I'm like, well, let's talk about this real quick. I said, how many of your children have parents over 65? They're like, well, no, obviously none. I'm like, so why are you putting an ad out in a book that only gets distributed to people over 65? And he had looked at me with a blank stare. And I'm like, he goes, what are you trying to say? I'm like, you need to cancel your ad. I said, you're spending $800 a month to target people that don't have children. And your business is for children. And he looked at me and was like, well, what do you think I should do? I said, you need to move that into digital or something else. He's like, well, I'm not working with you guys. And I'm like, well, what did I do? He goes, you guys have been coming in here and renewing my ad every year for like the last 15, 20 years. I said, I'm sorry, but I'm just telling you the truth. And of course, corporate doesn't like that. Like, why are you canceling all these ads? I'm like, because it doesn't work for these people. Like, well, you got to renew those. And I'm like,
right.
Don't give them to me if you don't want me to.
Doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly.
But how many times have you been in that? I'll give you an example of So when I worked for the Evil Empire radio station, hopefully that stock is over $1 today. They would make these weird pushes. Like you have to sell websites, and then that would be for like 90 days. And then you have to sell endorsements and whatever. So they were pushing to have every jock on the air have 4 endorsements. Why? I have no idea, because it did make us more money, but when it didn't work, it cost you more money, right? So if you did a deal with $35,000 for like 3 or 4 months, now that's on your budget for the next year, and then you can't replace it. It's too hard. So a client I've had probably for 20 some years, I called beforehand and I said, listen, my boss is making me bring this down. Please listen to the whole pitch and then call me back into the store, because I'm going to drive separate and I'm going to tell you something. So we do the whole pitch, and I do this like, I need this thing or I'm not going to eat tomorrow. And my fat boss is over there in the corner as his hair is falling out like Christmas leaves. And what happens is the client forgets I've said, listen to me and call me back. And he says, okay, I want to do it. And I'm looking at him like, oh, no.
No, you don't.
Like, you have to call me back in here. As we're walking out, this fat shit goes back to the office, and I go, oh, I forgot my pen. And I walk back and I go, please do not do this. And it would have been like a $70,000 deal. It's not the commission would have made me. It is once you were locked in, you're signing up for like a year, and you can't break that thing. You still got to pay for it. That's why I have that client to this day today, because I saved them from doing something that a corporation said, you need to do this. Not that it'll make you money, but you need to do it.
Which is why if you have a book that may be the color yellow, that might have a lot of pages in it
that are yellow pages.
Your current agreement is probably an 18-month. They've stretched it from 12 months to 18 months. I think they might be going to 24-month terms, because they hope you forget to pay the bill.
Right.
Now, there are some people, some service businesses that actually generate a lot of business from it. But 90% of the people in there don't need to be in there, in my opinion.
You ever hear the 2 martini lunch?
No.
So I'd heard it as a kid, but I didn't know what that meant. That meant, I'm going to take you, you're my client. We're going to go to a nice restaurant, and I'm going to get you blottered. And you're going to sign this deal, because this wasn't like we do now. Like, send me an email and I'll do this. If I could get you to sign that, I'm going to get you as hammered as possible and go back. And then I'm going to turn in the order. You're going to be so embarrassed that you didn't know that you signed it, that you're just going to go ahead and pay for it. I heard that story from the first general manager of NBC in Columbus. That guy was selling like an oldies radio station that like 90-year-olds listen to. That's how well his career went. And he told me that story, and I said, did you do that once? He said, we would do it every day. So when I watch Mad Men, and I'm like, there's no way they were drinking that much. They weren't drinking enough to close these deals. And that's how they were closing it. That's when you know that this really is a band of gypsies who are just selling you what they hope works. Just keep signing up, because we don't know what works. Speaking of, we don't know what works. We don't know if you're listening. And if you're not, thanks for not listening. We'll see you next week.